brief sort of pause as things start to organize, and this is where we need to start to watch. So you can already just see this is we're on EC, so this hasn't updated for 12Z yet. I think I'll double check that again. I think it's pretty still a bit too early. Let's have a look. Ah, 10 minutes ago. So it is fresh off. So you and I, we're all seeing this together because I have not seen this yet. But already I can see this is really leaning into that coastal trough situation, which if you're a rainfall lover, it's probably a better outcome, to be honest, than an ECL. ECLs are fun and wild and woolly, but for about 12 hours, maybe 20, 18 hours at most, if it sort of hangs around. Otherwise, it POQs very quickly and it sort of takes all the stuff with it. Whereas a coastal trough, as I've been saying a number of times, is far more efficient at accumulating rainfall than anything under this planet, other than maybe a cyclone. Because often the broader synoptic setup that is required to create a coastal trough along the east coast of New South Wales, it means it's going to be very slow moving. It's going to hang around, which when you're talking about sort of moist maritime air pumping into sort of dry continental air, you're always looking at great rainfall totals. And fingers crossed is what we're going to see when we pull up the rainfall figures. But we can already see here the bends and these wind streams as come in. There's your coastal trough starting to form already. Just off the coast, well, that's Wednesday night, so we weren't expecting much. If we look last night till pretty Thursday-ish. And we can see that, oh, there you go, it's actually now pushing back towards now. If my guess, let's see if my guess is right, but I'm thinking EC is probably going to maintain these pretty massive falls because you can see here those lines coming across the coast and then they bend and they shift. So they go from here, they go from northeasterlies and they curve up and then they start going to southeasterlies. And where the air sort of folds over itself like that is where you get massive rainfall. And this is the surface. So you might find, for example, if I was to bring up the layers, let's have a look. Brain. I always click on the wrong one. It's the little plane below it. If I was to bring up that, it's probably not going to let me because I'm in gusts and it doesn't do. So let's go. I'll go to normal wind for a sec because you can't do altitude and gusts because models don't like it. But if I was to go and show you where the winds are, say at 850, where the next thing, you can see already that bend is just along the coast as well and then feeding into the coast. So the surface is sort of folding over itself and then throwing the air up and then it's sort of being dragged over. And you can see definitely some sort of system moving through here. And if I was to go up a bit further, you can see then that sort of northerly feed as well. So, and look at that strong, you get a bit further upland too. So it's, got this really good infeed into it as well. And as that moisture from the surface has been lifted upstairs, it's going to get into this sort of messy situation, but it looks like it's going to be moist and warmer situation, which is great for, forming raindrops and having it all fall down, and hopefully some cold air above it, which will then keep sucking the air up, which is what you want to see. But looking very fascinating. All right, let's go back to what I was talking, not get distracted. All right, back to the surface. We'll go back to gusts because gusts gives us the better an idea of the overall strength of the system. And so we can see here, this is Wednesday evening. So we can see when I turn to the rainfall, we should start to see obviously an increase in precipitation, I think on Wednesday afternoon or evening, but look at that. And then we can see that southerly surge that we're watching starting to push up the coast. You can see that EC now sort of hooks it in the south coast here a bit, which is interesting in itself. And then you can see then it streams north like a big tongue, pushing into us. Meanwhile, we can see the coastal trough is laying there across basically along the coast, which is where we want to see it. And it's going to be invigorated by this real narrow, very strong southerly. So that's very interesting setup. And you can see here comes to the northeast there. Look at this. Wow. This setup reminds me very much of what we saw last year in those horrific floods up on the north coast, except it's the wrong time of year, like June, May, June. You don't typically see this sort of setup. So the dynamicism, the availability of moisture and instability, of course, is not going to be as much as you would see when we saw that sort of flooding last year. But man, this is looking particularly nasty on this scenario, because you've got this incredibly deep northeasterly. This is coming from a long way out. If I was to zoom out and show you, I mean, look where it's coming from. Way out in the South Pacific. I mean, even further, it's coming out from basically, what's that, Tonga. It's coming out from there or wrapping right down around. So and look at this, as it increases here, it picks up even more moisture. It hits it's that southern Coral Sea and northern Tasman, and then you can see it. Where is it focusing? Hooking in between the Hunter and us. So at this stage, EC is probably favouring a little bit more into the Hunter, but We'll see when the rainfall comes up, but I'm assuming that the New West of the Hunter de Laura is going to get absolutely banged in this. If this EC comes up, of course, I'll just go a bit more. Sorry for mucking around that. I just want to make sure I keep some perspective. We'll go, I don't want to go too far out because I want to see the stuff coming from the west, but we also don't want to go too far out so we lose the nuances on the coast. But so wrapping in, so at this stage, EC is definitely going for this coastal trough scenario. And then you can see the response of all that moisture and instability coming down as really fires up. And you can see there's actually a very broad trough now lying along the east coast. And you can see the winds hooking in and strengthening. You can see that really gale force really, what's it up to there, 40 knots plus, which is severe winds, really starting to build up on that south coast and southern Illawarra and then start to push very north. And you can see there's curvature right down there, and there's no real low yet, but you can see the potential in this, anywhere in this sort of weak area here where the winds are on one side and, wrapping in either side. This is where we're looking at for anything to sort of start developing. So at this stage, I'd look, looking between the Hunter and the central coast, sunny coast, and then you can see here, like, really, wow, look at that. That's absolutely smashing. And you can see how narrow it is too. So it's not like just a normal southerly that's coming up the coast. This is like a real infeed flow into the trough, low, whatever's going to develop. At this stage, still no low on EC, but that's a pretty deep trough. You can see just even yourself, just in the surface winds, just the complexity of like incredibly strong winds and then basically stopping. That's getting sucked up, which is why it's stopping. It's not like just stopping and, the winds just disappear. It's actually lifting up into the atmosphere as it pours into that trough, which is why there's this real area of like discontinuity, like light winds through here, because this is a freaking massive trough and very deep trough and very active trough. Whether we get the good total goods out of it, I guess it depends on where it will sit. And you can still see like here now, real starts a bit of curvature here as that northeasterly starts to push in again, and you can see that tongue of southerlies starting to wrap around and hitting this. So be interesting to see what happens here. But this stage, comprehensively say that EC is not going for any sort of low, and you can see here, definitely going for a trough. And then you can see the focus shifts out here. Here we go. Tasman sea low out near sort of Lord Howe Island, and you can see that wrapping around into it, and another little low here, little meso low. So it's still actually a big trough. I wouldn't say there's any discrete low there at all at this stage. It's just one massive giant trough. But then you can see it start to really skip off to the east, as it's quite normal, as the next sort of system starts pushing through and bumps it on. And then I really want to see if these winds are going to arrive or if EC going to back out and be chicken. Here they come. Wow. Oh, golly, golly. Here comes those winter westerlies we all love. Thankfully, it's only for a couple of days, but you can see another nasty cold front come through. And that's our other sort of system off WA. I think we saw at this stage, it's pretty much going to bring pretty savage cold weather because all the moisture has been dragged away by this system at the moment, but we'll see. I mean, anything can change. But all right, so EC at this stage is going for a deep coastal trough. Now that looks a pretty wet signal to me, but we'll see.